Recently, I got together with a fellow YouTuber, your mate Tom, and we had a very long discussion about many subjects, some of them about psychedelics and some about other stuff. I will be posting this podcast in episodes now, and if you enjoy our conversation, please sponsor 434 through methods listed on the screen and in the video description. Thank you for your help. If you would like to hear more from your mate Tom, the link to his YouTube channel is in the video description. What's your story with alcohol? Because it seems like it had a well, judging by your videos, the content of your videos, it must have had a big impact on your life.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, as you know, I was born in Australia, and I think that by nature we're alcoholics. So I started drinking very young, about 13 years old, but I just went straight to binge drinking, just drinking until you just couldn't drink anymore, until like 90% of the times that I did drink alcohol, it ended up me just vomiting. Um, and I was hanging out with kind of they weren't bad people, definitely not. They were just misunderstood misfits, I would say. But with good hearts, most of them. But at the same time, because of the crowd that I was hanging out with, I got myself in very dodgy situations and, drinking in the train station, like that kind of very, very low underworld kind of vibe. And as time went on, I just started drinking more and more and more. And for the most part, I was a very happy drunk. There was no problems, but there was also this kind of psychotic demon, let's say, within me that would kind of come out every once in a while, like a light switch would come. Someone would come and look at, I don't know, maybe provoke me or some sort of situation that would trigger this monster within, and I would turn into something that was very ugly and scary, especially when you realize that you're capable of such things and uh, these kind of violent situations just started to increase more and more. It definitely wasn't often because I was actually a very shy, socially anxious person. So it took a lot for me to explode like that. But when it did, it was very, very scary. And
Yeah, that
yeah,
was interesting from your videos, like the fight you had. Was it your cousin or
yeah,
someone?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I saw
that's
him the other
really.
day, actually. We're brothers. It's all good. It's just stuff like that happens.
It's just funny that the alcohol turns you into like a completely new person. It's you become this weird, whatever you are is very often the opposite of what you are. Um,
Mm,
I'm
yeah.
quite lucky because I don't get aggressive when I get drunk. It only amplifies my whatever I am, like a loving person. I always love everybody. It makes me a very social person. I'm already a social person, but for me, alcohol is a strange thing because when I go out, when I go like in social environment and I talk to people, I need to wait for them to get a little bit drunk so that they can catch up or they can get to my level of honesty.
Yeah.
And it's so annoying because I'm waiting for people to get drunk to become like me because I'm like a
Yeah.
no filter person. Like I can talk about anything to anyone. I don't have like shame or like a Teflon. Just basically nothing sticks to me. I don't care. I just love being open and being myself. But I need to wait for people to get a few beers into their system or some wine, and then they open up, and then we can be on the same level. That's obviously a very temporary state, and then they go further. But I usually need to stay where I am because alcohol is very toxic to me. I don't get drunk; I get like alcohol poisoning.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't drink. I tend not to drink too much. I don't like alcohol basically. But alcohol is weirdly socially accepted, and it's okay to be drunk,
Yeah.
as you said in your videos. But it's not. There's this one video where you just criticize all the psychedelics, everything, and at the end you drink beer. So that's basically what it is. Like you say that
Yeah.
you cannot roll the joint in at a dinner with your family, but there's no problem just getting out the bottle of vodka or
No,
whatever.
no problem at all.
It's
There's
a
a
bit
reason
weird.
why I think when we conquested all these new countries, the first thing that they do is give the indigenous people lots of alcohol. It
Yeah.
destroys community. Like, I don't want to just put the blame on alcohol, but at the same time, I feel like it's had a negative net effect on humanity, at least at our stage of development. I just don't think that a lot of people can handle drinking large quantities of alcohol. But it's also the programming too. Like you said, alcohol is completely accepted. It's fine. You can get drunk, no biggie. Your family isn't going to judge you for it. But as soon as you roll a joint, which no one's getting violent from getting stoned of one joint, it's never happened. But that's just, yeah, crossing the line, apparently.
I have this theory because you just mentioned the indigenous people. I have this theory that alcohol is being secretly probably used to it's like dumbing down society because I come from Eastern Europe, and this
Mm,
whole region here of all those countries spanning from Russia to Germany, all those Slavic nations, there's always a lot of drinking. Germany maybe not so much, but all those countries like Russia, Czech Slavs, and Polish people,
yeah.
it's really interesting to see how over the years the history of these countries, it's actually all about them having some sort of relationship with alcohol, and it's be it just make alcohol themselves or creating a culture around alcohol. It's like drinking
Mm,
is a big part of it, and it's the same. I When I moved to England, I realized that the problem in England is even worse than it is in Eastern Europe. Well, the difference is that in Eastern Europe, people get drunk. They get heavily drunk and they drink just 40% vodka or spirits, that kind of stuff. It's
yeah.
hardcore drinking. Well, at least the drinks are hardcore. Here, it's more of social drinking, but still, I know people like moms, just regular type of people who need a bottle of wine to go to sleep. And
Wow.
the
Yep.
drinking culture here in England is, well, not just, it's UK, not only England. I mean, Ireland has probably a much bigger problem than England has. Um, and it's just a part of the culture. And the funny thing is that looking historically at the Prohibition era back in I think it was the 1920s or 30s, when they banned alcohol in America, that was a big thing. That was mafia was involved in this.
Oh yeah. Al
But when they
Capone,
banned,
yeah.
yeah, they banned psychedelics, nothing really happened. Um,
No.
so it can tell you a little bit about human nature. But what you said was very interesting because they did the same thing to Native Americans that they did to Australia, people in Australia, the
Oh yeah,
original.
Aboriginals. There's a huge,
Exactly.
huge problem with that, man.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
it's
not a
really sad.
problem.
Mm.
Apparently, it was by design. What they did is that they make sure that they have no access to good education or health services, nothing like that, and they just
Yeah.
pump their communities with alcohol. And they did the same
Yeah.
thing in Eastern Europe, in America, and they did this in Australia. So my theory is that maybe alcohol is being used not as we perceive it as a social lubricant. I think it's more of a devastating some sort of an element that allows whoever controls us to basically maintain control over us because alcohol is a huge
Yeah.
destroyer of everything.
Yeah. It seems like it's a bit of spiritual warfare because it seems to kind of induce that I don't know, it inebriates us, you know what I mean? Dumbs us down,
Yeah,
puts us
yeah.
more into that primal self. And you can see it. Like it's not even some out there conspiracy theory. You just look around. Go to a bar at 2 o'clock in the morning.
It's very interesting to see even now um, how when they impose those lockdowns, everything like that, everything's okay, like to a moment where they start shutting down pubs and restaurants, and that's when
Yeah,
it starts becoming a problem. It's like
too
It's
far.
yeah, it's like no, no, no. You can take away my essential product in the shop. I don't mind me not being able to buy socks for my child, but beer is where I draw the line. You take away my
Yeah.
beer, that's when I'm starting to riot. So that's
Yeah.
really interesting. What I noticed is that looking at the dads in my family, and it's really interesting because I recently lost my cousin at the age of 42, and I'm 40 myself, and
Ah, sorry to hear that,
he
though, man. Yeah.
it's unfortunate. It's just that when you get to that age, you start thinking, okay, so it's halfway through. I need to start taking care of myself. And when he died, it was like a wake up call that you're not immortal. I mean, I know this, but I started thinking that's not far from where I am age wise. And he was a very weak personality, but I'm not trying to be disrespectful towards him. It's just that his wife left him, and he was never the same person, and he found
Mm,
his escape or whatever in alcohol, and he was a heavy drinker. And this is what I noticed, that you can do a lot of weird stuff, like be addicted to a lot of chemicals, or different type of activities. As soon as you include alcohol in your addictions, your health just starts going down immediately. And I've noticed that
mm,
people who die of cancers or heart attacks, it seems that alcohol is a very important contributing factor. And people say, like, you read peer-reviewed studies and what doctors say, and they say, it's stress, it's bad food, cholesterol. Then occasionally they'll mention smoking, but no one talks about the damaging effects of alcohol. And this is really interesting to
mm. Yeah, because I find it fascinating how they do all these studies, and we try to like specialize and kind of pinpoint one contributing factor, but maybe it could be alcohol because it seems to damage all your cells in a very profound way, more so than even drugs like heroin and meth. I'm not going to say it's worse or it's better, but it definitely has a very profound effect on the human body in a negative way, at
Yeah.
least physically. I mean, it seems to be one of the very few substances that you can die from the withdrawals, if you're a deep alcoholic.
That was interesting when I heard you say that in your videos. I've never really heard of people. I know that people have problems when they try to go through heroin addiction. So I know that you need to
Hmm.
be slow with this, but I never heard anyone say that about alcohol.
Yeah, I have a friend who's a psychiatrist, and yeah, he had a patient who had to be hooked up to a alcohol drip. Otherwise, if they removed it and he just quit alcohol cold turkey, he would literally die. And
Wow.
it's not uncommon. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Hmm.
That's bad. What I've noticed is that I I do a lot of just bad stuff, like eating a whole bar of chocolate. I'll do it occasionally, and then I just feel
Yeah, me
like an
too, man.
idiot.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm like, why did I do this? Because I know that like 50 grams of pure sugar will cause, I don't know, 3 days of vitamin C deficiency, and then all the viruses that you have in your body, there's no defense mechanism against them. So I know what I'm doing to myself. It's just that
Yeah.
occasionally I let myself do something stupid like this. But I've noticed that when I let myself to drink a little bit more, um, I immediately pay for it, and it's the next day I feel like I cannot get out of bed. Something's like the thinking's very cloudy. It's a completely different mindset. And I've noticed that I noticed that when I started going to America, and the thing about me, like going to places like Vegas where you have those all you can eat buffets.
Yeah.
You can eat yourself stupid, just eat so much that you cannot move, and it's fun. It's something that it's like first world problem. You can eat so much that you cannot leave your chair, and it's fun. It's really interesting because American food is really, I don't know. I'm addicted to American food. I really like it, especially on the West Coast. But I noticed that as soon as I mix alcohol with it, things start getting really shady. Like it's okay for me to eat too much, but when I eat and drink too much, then I start seeing things happening with my
Mm,
start skin problems, and then I start seeing all kinds of like immune system reactions, something that I don't get from anything else. So that's the reason why I started
interesting.
thinking that maybe alcohol is much worse than we believe it to be. And maybe there's some sort of a big conspiracy where they don't want us to know how bad alcohol is for us. And then when you combine it with how just just how widely available it is in our society, you start thinking like, is it not by design that we have so much access to alcohol?
Exactly. And like the way that we demonize cigarettes isn't even close to the way that we picture
Right?
alcohol. And
Exactly.
I mean, obviously cigarettes and putting all these different chemicals and yes, obviously it's bad for human health, but no one's going to smoke a cigarette and then have a psychotic rage or drive a car and then kill a 8-year-old kid or really, mess up things like this. So I don't understand why cigarettes is so demonized, but then alcohol isn't, you know?
That's the reason why I'm asking you these questions, because when you look at the number of alcohol related deaths, and it's, traffic accidents, or as you said,
Hmm.
domestic violence,
it's staggering. The numbers, you look at them, you like, if you were to look at everything from an alien perspective, that's what I do all the time. Not as a human, just look as an alien who comes to
Yeah.
Earth and he's looking at like human population. He goes, are you all idiots? What are you doing? You have this liquid that you put in your body that turns you into a psychopath, and it's legal, and no one talks about this, and even your politicians do it, and everything's fine. And you think like,
Mm,
what's wrong with you people? If you want to solve your problems, just stop drinking, and then maybe you'll have the brain to actually make smart decisions. Because it seems that your brain stops. You know this ad? I think you even had it in your channel. Like, this is your brain on drugs. They've never done an ad where they say this is your brain on alcohol,
no.
because yeah, it's much worse, isn't
Yeah, yeah. I think we're taking all the wrong drugs.
it?
That seems to be our problem.
Exactly. Now, okay, so talking about psychedelics, because it's a very strange thing that someone with so much psychedelic experience, with so many substance experience as you have, you're also the person who's had so many problems with alcohol.
Mm.
So from your experience, how does alcohol compare? Or, I mean, does it compare at all to psychedelic substances? How does it come into your life with all the experience that you have? What would you say about the comparison between
Oh,
psychedelics and alcohol?
oh, there's night and day. I couldn't even tell you any similarities except that it just induces a different state of consciousness. But it seems that at least with psychedelics, at least when, done in a proper context, it seems to put you in a higher state of consciousness, or at least it allows you to be more aware of your patterns, of the nature of reality, the world around you, things like this. Whereas alcohol just seems to, yeah, feed that primal part of yourself. And it's fun. It can be fun. It makes you more loose, especially if you're shy. I think that's why alcohol can attract so many people who struggle with social anxiety. But it's not really you. Whereas at least with psychedelics, you learn stuff, man. Like I always come out a different person. And even with the psychedelic experiences that haven't been necessarily profound, but it's I don't know. I always feel like I get something out of it, or at least I get a learning experience.
Mm.
But I guess the way that alcohol led me into psychedelics was, yeah, I just kept having those very dark moments, and the further I got along with my drinking, the worse it got, and then the more frequent these outrages would be, and then to the point where you hurt someone you love, and then that you're in hell, right? You're just turned into the monster that you've hated your whole life, and then you're like, what do I do now? I've hit rock bottom, and then through there, I started to become more open to things like Buddhism, meditation, lucid dreaming, and then this led me into the Joe Rogan experience, of course, and I saw guests like Aubrey Marcus and Graham Hancock. And Graham Hancock talked about how he was addicted to cannabis for about 20 years or something, and he did ayahuasca, and that helped him finally quit the habit. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. And that led me to booking my ayahuasca retreat, and that just completely changed the game for me. And I haven't gotten drunk since then. Even now, like when I do drink alcohol, rarely, I kind of I don't even drink more than half a glass of red wine, which is incredible when you look back on how crazy I was with the drinking. There are certain things that I don't drink, like beer. I just don't like the idea of drinking fermented wheat because wheat and my body doesn't go well together. It just makes me sleepy.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are definitely a lot of alcohol types that I avoid altogether, but some that, I'll have every once in a while. But even then, man, it's not my cup of tea.